Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Rudy's Kitchen Express. A couple of days ago we had ham, so what I like to do with the leftover ham is make a nice hearty navy beans and ham soup. So our ingredients are a few. Olive oil and pepper. Always begin with some celery, carrot, and onion, as most dishes do prepare. I have a couple of extra strips of bacon from breakfast. We're going to start the use some of that fat in that bacon to be able to saute those veggies. We're using navy bean beans. You can use a lot of different type of beans. This is what we have, but it typically goes better with this recipe. And we have the leftover ham. Last night I soaked 2 cups of navy beans in water. We're going to soak those overnight and then we're going to saute them. And here we've got some, because there's no bone in the ham, that I would have made a ham broth. Instead I'm going to use some chicken broth. And that's it. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is prepare our veggies. Give them you don't have to be really fine on the chop, because this is a soup. If this was a sauce, you would cut your vegetables at a smaller dice. Here we're going to make them nice and hearty and chunky. Added a little bit of olive oil and get these vegetables starting to saute. Nice coarse cut. Add in our bacon. Fat from the bacon will help add a lot of flavor. Smells good. So we're not going to add any salt because the ham and the bacon is salty enough. You want to put a little pepper. Pepper and beans are a natural combination. So let these saute for about 3 minutes. All right, I've trimmed up some of this ham from the fat. We don't want it too fatty. And then we're going to just give this a rough chop. Good. Add this to our veggies. Start to see some caramelization from the onion. Oh, this is coming along real well. So you can see that caramelization in the bottom of the pot. When we add some liquid to it, we're going to want to scrape that off a little bit, because a caramelization is a lot of flavor. Okay, here are our beans. Here's our chicken stock. Now, if you have a ham bone that comes with your ham, this is where you would leave this ham bone right in here and let that saute with all the bits of the ham that are still stuck to it, and the marrow from the ham bone creates a really nice, broth. We don't have that. We're trying to go a little less fat, leaner, so we didn't have a bone in our ham. This will work just as well. Okay, let's check on how our soup is doing. Oh, nice. It's got a nice little low simmer. That'll go for about an hour or so until the beans are tender. And the cook time is, depends on the size of the bean. The smaller the bean, obviously it's gonna cook a little sooner. If you're using, let's say a cannelli bean or something like that, that's much larger, it's gonna take a little more time. But just test it for doneness. So nothing goes better with a bowl of soup like this, hearty navy bean and ham soup, than some bread. We're gonna make some fresh bread. Now, everybody has their own family recipes. The first thing we do is we're gonna get about 1.5 cups of hot water. You want the water to be at about 115 degrees. Okay. To this, we're going to add some yeast. Tablespoon of yeast. To the yeast, we're going to put, rough measure, 2 tablespoons of sugar. Sugar is going to eat the yeast. Start to give that about 3-4 minutes until you start to see a little bit of activation of that yeast, and then you know it's working for you. Okay, to the pot, we're going to go with 4 cups of flour. Now we've got our oven warming up. This is a bread flour that we're using. That's 1 more cup there. You see that it's starting to create a little foam. That's that yeast activating. But we'll give it another couple of minutes. Okay, so our yeast is activated nicely. We're going to add this to the flour. Give it a little mix. Now, at first, it's going to look like you don't have enough water. And then it starts to bind together. Now, I want to put a little bit of salt in that. It's about 1/2 teaspoon. But never put the salt directly into the yeast because it'll kill the yeast. Now, if it is a little bit too dry, just add a little touch of wet your hands, maybe, and that will. This is starting to come together when all of the flour is incorporated. Okay, this is when you get your hands a little dirty. A little flour for the board. I'm gonna wet my hands. So we're just going to give it a gentle knead. Oh, it's coming together really nice. Okay. Now, we're going to put that back in a bowl. Now, what I like to do is just give it a little bit of olive oil just around it. And then we're going to cover this. It's important that you cover it with some a wrap or a towel, because you don't want to get you don't want to form a crust on that dough. Okay, so we're going to set this aside for about 3 or 4 hours. Now, 3 or 4 hours ago, we did one in advance. So you see how that is nice and risen. Okay, so this, a little bit of gentle persuasion, this will come right out. That oil helps it a little bit. Also, a little bit of olive oil will create a little bit of a thicker crust, and we like that. Now to this, we just want to fold it into itself. A little bit of flour will help that. Okay. Now that's ready to go into the oven. Okay, we need a lot more flour. I said fold it into itself. Okay, so this is going to go into, we've transferred this to some parchment paper. Now I'm going to make a little cut on the top. You'll see how that helps form the crust. You like to put a little bit of salt on it on the top. Let that sit for about 5 minutes. It'll continue to rise actually, and then we're going to transfer it to a stone in the oven. Go into a 425 degree oven for about 45 minutes. But after around 40 minutes, check it. You might need a little bit more, might need a little bit less, depending on how your oven works. All right, so now we've got the oven to 425 degrees. Got that on a pizza stone. I'm gonna put that in underneath it. We've got some ice cubes in a tray. That moisture will help to steam the bread and help form that crust a little nicer. So this is going in for about 45 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 40 minutes.
Did you find her?
And this is looking very nice and nicely done. We'll set that to cool. And we're gonna have a nice piece of bread with our soup. All right, so our soup is finished. We've got a nice hearty meal on a cold winter day. The bread has been made, and the children just love that fresh bread. It smells amazing in here today. And children, what do we say before we eat?
Bon appetito!